There's this whole idea as we age that we're going to slow down, that things will get harder. And it's like, what if that wasn't the case? We're not training to get better at training. You got to train to get better at life, because you're going to be squatting every day. Every day you get up off the toilet, you get out of a chair, you're squatting. And so let's put it in a controlled environment and then start to do things that will make you a little unstable or add a little power or add a little jump, because that's what's going to get you in trouble out in the wild.
JJ Virgin is a triple board certified nutrition expert and fitness Hall of Famer. She's the author of multiple New York Times bestselling books, and she's been featured everywhere from PBS to Dr. Oz to Rachel Ray to Access Hollywood to the Today Show. The list goes on and on. Today, I want to talk about 5 things, and we've talked about this a little bit, but we're really going to lay these things out. 5 things that you're doing to be fit in your 60s that most people just simply aren't doing. And I think it has a lot to do that just don't know, number one. And of course, the ideas about what aging is supposed to look like. And I've talked about this with you. I've talked about this with our friends, just talking good behind your back, like with Cynthia, for example, and just like you really do inspire us and you give us like a roadmap.
I might have kicked Cynthia's butt a little bit on the last time I saw her.
Good.
Just a tad.
Sometimes she needs that.
Yes.
You got to behave.
But there is, to your point, there's this whole idea as we age that we're going to slow down, that things will get harder. And it's like, what if that wasn't the case? What if it didn't have to be that way?
I had this wonderful conversation with Ellen Langer. All right, Dr. Ellen Langer. She works in the psychology department at Harvard, first woman to receive tenure in the psychology department at Harvard. She's been running experiments on mindfulness since the 1970s.
Wow.
And, what happens is we start to use kind of this cultural construct of what aging looks like to affirm things, right? So, for example, if we get an injury when we're in our 20s, doing some active thing, we'll just chalk it up to like, I just, got injured and I'm just going to do stuff to get better. But if it happens when you're in your 40s, it's just like, oh, I'm getting older. Or if it happens in your 50s, you know what I mean? It's like, instead of focusing on what things I'm going to do to get well, we start to tell ourselves a story and ourselves are listening, right? And so, we have such an ability to change this narrative. And it starts with us doing stuff with our body. If we do have this use it or lose it paradigm with our bodies. And so I want to talk about these 5 things. Number 1, surprisingly, which is kids do it all the time, just running around and jumping. Let's talk about that one.
I know, and they have fun doing it.
Yeah.
So as I was really looking at what would be the perfect exercise prescription for someone 40 plus, because when you look at what's starting to happen, 30s, 40s, you hear about losing muscle mass, but that is not the real issue when you look at it. I mean, it's really the quality of the muscle. So it's much more you're losing strength and you're losing power. That's the scary one. And that's the one when you think about it, like I'll give my dog example. So I have 2 little dogs. I have a 2-year-old dog and a 17-year-old dog, both Chihuahua mixes. My now 17-year-old is slow. She shuffles. Of course, my 2-year-old's running around like a crazy little dog. And you just watch people as they get older. They start to shuffle. They just don't move fast. And it's actually how fast you can go up a flight of stairs is a great predictor of all-cause mortality. And it is use it or lose it. So a cool place to start with that is to do a jump test. This is one you can do at home. It's super easy. I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. All you do is you take a pencil and you jump as high as you can and mark the wall. And then you just reach your hand up and mark the wall and you take the difference and then you normalize it to your age and sex. And it will show you. And then you actually train for it. Right? Because if you think about it, we're not doing fast, powerful movements. And even when we do start to go into a lot of the stuff they tell us to do as we age, walk, do yoga, do Pilates. And these are important. We want the balance, but we also need the speed, the power, the agility, which means we've got to train for it. And I think I might have told you last time I was here, Tim and I decided we were going to start taking HIIT classes. Yeah. And I have to go take a class and have someone else do something with me to first start it. Otherwise, I get in a rut, and I think we all do. And we'll just keep doing the same thing we've always done. And if you're doing that as you age, you're not progressing. You're actually slowly declining. Like the real definition of exercise is to do more than you were used to, so your body has to adapt. And so we go to this HIIT class, and the joke was we were like not just the oldest people in the class. I could have not just given birth to the people in the class. I probably could have, they're probably really are more like my grandkids, right? So the people in the class are early 20s, super fit. And we are doing burpees and Turkish get-ups and sprinting. And I was so ridiculously sore after I walked out of that for a week. And I mean, I work out every day. So I went, this is ridiculous. I've got to challenge my body to do the things I'm not used to doing, of which jumping. And I think we do that in a really controlled setting. Like a great way for someone to start is just to do air squats over a chair. And then at the end of the air squat, jump up just a little bit, right? Not hard at all.
A little air squat plus a little hop.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that.
I mean, think of the stuff that we used to do as kids where we just would like bound across the yard, skip.
These are those inputs, again, if you think about it, even there are cultures today, they're still working into their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and beyond. And sometimes, if you're, for example, trying to cross a creek and you've got to hop on this thing or, just being able to, get from one place to the next, the terrain isn't always going to be this kind of uniform thing that we usually train on here as we're trying to kind of simulate what life would be like, essentially. So. But
we actually, we end up in trouble because we try to create too protective of an environment. And life is not protected. I like to say that we're not training to get better at training. You got to train to get better at life, which means you do something in a protected environment to start, like a squat. Because I'll hear people say, oh, I can't squat because I've got bad knees or a bad back. And I think, well, what if the reason why you think you shouldn't do it is actually the reason why you should? Because you're going to be squatting every day. Every day you get up off the toilet, you get out of a chair, you're squatting. And so let's put it in a controlled environment and then start to do things that will make you a little unstable or add a little power or add a little jump, because that's what's going to get you in trouble out in the wild, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love this statement. We hear this thing that practice makes perfect, but it's really practice makes permanent. Kelly Starrett shared that with me, and it's just like, these are these inputs. If you're going to live life, just period, you're going to need to be able to squat. And so to do it in a controlled environment so you can do it in the real world, that's what it's supposed to be all about. So I love that. So doing some air squats with a little hop. Is there anything else, any other inputs that we can kind of add in to train for being able to jump a little bit more?
So when you think about movement patterns, we've got to be able to do, forward, back. And so that would be a simple squat, jump. Side to side. So lateral, side to side, I look at something as simple as, and this is, by the way, where you can use a TRX if you're nervous to start with, just to hold on for a little assist. But you can just do side bounds or a skater jump. A skater jump is just where you jump to one side, then you jump to the other side, then you jump to it's a skater. Mimicking skating, right? Skater jump. Even, jumping jacks. You're moving your leg out to the side, right?
But then also, it was a skier jump, ski jump.
I call it skater jumps, but that's my term for it.
Okay.
I know there's other ways. A wood chop, because you also need to rotate, right? Yeah. So you can do some rotation with your skater jump. That might be a skier jump. In my book, it's a skater jump because I haven't skied since I was in my 20s.
Who's jumping on skis anyways? I'm just messing with you.
I used to jump on skis.
Well, of course. It was
one of my knee blowouts. You know what happened? My doctor, after he did my ACL, he goes, you can do anything, just don't do mogul skiing. And I go, not a problem. I've never mogul skied. Except the minute he said, don't do it, all I thought about was, oh, I should go do that. That's what I went and did, which he was right. You were right, Dr. Brenzina. So the wood chopping, throwing a ball, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. I think medicine balls are one of the most fantastic things you can do. I think we've talked about this. Don't you have a bunch of those at home, or were they kettlebells that you haven't? But my kids grew up thinking that balls were heavy. That's just the way they were. But think about what you could do just holding onto a heavy ball and moving it to the side, doing a wood chop.
Yeah, I love that. And you can even sort of simulate part of a jump just doing a medicine ball slam. When you're raising up and kind of getting up on your toes and then forcing your energy through the ground. Yeah, there's so many cool ways to employ this focus on power.
Right.
And having that, because again, if you don't use it, you lose it. And so having this input and you doing exceptional things in your 60s and giving us the blueprint of what this looks like. So let's move on to the next one. And this is, it's not just walking. Yes, walking, obviously, our genes expect us to walk. But one of the things that you've been putting into play is walking with a load, walking with weight. Talk about that.
Now I'm trying to find a cuter rucking vest. So I was like, all right, where are the cute rucking vests for the women? So there was a study that came out that looked at 3 groups. One was the control group. And then one group was told to walk 12,000 steps a day. One group was told to walk 12,000 steps a day, but 3 times a week at intensity for 30 minutes. That was it. That group, both of those groups had improvement in their LDL-C, but that was it. The group with the intensity added, same amount of steps. And then you would argue probably a little less time, right? They actually had better body composition, better HDL, better waist circumference, better blood sugar, just by adding a little bit of intensity. So you look at it and go, 12,000 steps, easy enough to track, but add in that intensity. And I live in Florida, so I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Right? I mean, there's no hills here unless I go find a bridge. So the easiest thing was to add in a rucking vest. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing with a rucking vest, and there's a couple really interesting things about rucking vests. First of all, you can progress with it. So you could start with 5 pounds, then go to 10 pounds and go up from there. But the other interesting thing, so think about it, if someone's losing weight, they will have a metabolic adaptation. Because some of their, if you look at your metabolism, some of your metabolism is based on how much you weigh. That's why we always want to have more muscle, because then we're going to have a better basal metabolic rate. But still, you're going to lose some of that weight, so your daily caloric needs are going to go down a little bit. But what if you just wore a rucking vest to compensate? Right? At least some of the time.
Yeah. There's so many ways to go about that. Of course, you can get a fancy pants rucking vest, or grab yourself a backpack and get it nice and snug and put maybe a weight plate in there.
Just throw some water bottles back there. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this. That's what I've been looking at, because I wanted a travel rucking vest. I'm like, is there a water bladder? And I go, why am I making this hard? Yeah. I can actually just have a backpack and throw water bottles in the back of it.
And if you think about this longevity piece, this reminds me of my mother-in-law, who, being from Kenya, she shared with me, for example, people be working with their child, basically strapped to them. And, you think about, we hear this concept of being a hunter-gatherer, right? So both of these inputs, and we'd be doing this into advanced age, are carrying things, right? And this is kind of a constant part of the day. You're carrying things. How often are we doing that today, right? So giving that input, that epigenetic input, add a little bit of a load from time to time at least, and you're going to get more metabolic bang for the buck too.
And to your point, look at opportunities to carry things. I noticed at the gym, I was always trying to get my weight bench closest to the dumbbells that I was going to lift. And then I went, what am I doing? I actually need to be far away from those dumbbells. So I have to far more carry those dumbbells over to where I'm going to be. It's when I used to work out at a gym in LA, and I always used to laugh because there was a staircase and an elevator to the gym floor and then to the cardio floor. And people would take the elevator to the cardio floor.
Yeah.
I mean, I kid you not.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we are covering the 5 things that you're doing to be fit in your 60s that most people simply aren't doing. The fitness icon, JJ Virgin, is here sharing these insights. So what is the next one?
And one thing to point out is some of the things that I'm talking about, I really just started to focus on, but not this next one. So really introducing the power, I started to think about that last year, I'll be honest. I just wasn't focused on it. And then I went, I'm losing this. However, I've always lifted heavy.
So that's number 3.
I started lifting heavy when I was in high school. I worked out with the football team in high school because we didn't have gyms back then. Girls did jazzercise and had little pink weights, and because everyone was afraid of getting big. And so, but the interesting thing is, I've really been focusing now on not just maintaining what I have, but increasing muscle. And so I've been messing around with a lot of different things to do that. And I think what's important in lifting heavy is it's what's heavy for you, because that's a big question I always get asked. How much should I lift? I'm like, how much can you lift? in good form. If you are just hearing this, the very first thing that you do is you teach your muscles and nerves to talk to each other in good form. So I believe that we should be focused on multi-joint compound movements that mimic activities of daily living, because that's going to make us better at life. So again, if I had to pick only one thing, it would be a squat, because it's so classically what we have to do all throughout the day. But I look at a squat, a pull-up, a push-up, an overhead press. I focus on these big movements. I don't really focus on core. I'll throw it in every once in a while during a rest break. But to me, if you're doing those exercises correctly, you're really using your core. And the reason I like to focus on those is not only do they transfer over to everyday life, but they're very metabolically costly. You're using a lot to do them. And they'll also always limit you by your weakest area, which is what you want anyway. That's where you're going to get hurt. Right? You know, you go do a bunch of leg extensions at the gym, which unless you're in the marching band, I don't know how useful that is for you.
Doing video game kicks.
Yeah, it's like, what am I going to do in life with this? But, you know, you do that, but what about your glutes? You know, what about your erector spinae? So let's do things that are multi-joint, that are functional. And then you're going to do the heaviest weight you can in good form. But there's a wide rep range that you can do. So someone who is concerned about getting injured could go lighter and longer. They could do, 2 or 3 sets of 30 repetitions, as long as when they get towards the end, they're getting to a point where they feel like maybe they only have 1 or 2 left in the tank. Mm-hmm. And in general, I find that what people think is left in the tank isn't close to, like, they're not pushing it hard enough. Get to that point where you're just about to sacrifice form and stop.
So this is kind of like a happy accident. Like it's hitting me today that you were such an early adopter of lifting heavy weights, just kind of by the nature of the environment that you were in, right? And so you see, literally when we see you, we see the outcome of that and having that input early on. But even with that, just like you just said, you shifted focus to more power generation, but because you were doing that, you were already doing another power generating movement through lifting heavy weights.
Yeah.
And adding in, of course, some different inputs with the agility and jumping and bounding and things like that. But you were getting most of the bang for the buck. Like lifting heavy weights it checks so many boxes.
Right. Right. And it is, I'm not quite sure how it even happened that I started lifting weights with that high school football team. It's such a bizarre thing to think about now. But at the time, I was in gymnastics and point ballet, which are really ridiculous for a 6-foot-tall, wrong sports, right? They kept trying to get me into basketball and I kept going over to those. But I really liked strength sports. They're where I always felt most comfortable. So I'm fortunate with that. And a lot of when you think about resistance training, there's a concept called high velocity resistance training. And I think once you have your foundation in place, which is somewhere in the 8 to 16 weeks to really get that foundation, and you don't want to rush it because you want to make sure your connective tissue is ready. Like when you're first starting resistance training, you get your muscles and nerves to talk to each other and you get your connective tissue to respond. And once you're at that point, now you can start pushing things faster and harder and doing shorter sets where you're going to pull more strength in. Because as you know, you'll get your muscles to grow and you'll get some strength and you'll get some power doing whatever you're doing. But if you really want to focus on them, it's a little bit different. Like you really want to focus on moving fast, especially in the concentric or shortening phase. And the heavier you go is going to pull in more strength, right? The hard short sets, like, 5 repetitions, 3 repetitions versus doing a set of 30.
Now, for you, what do you think is, and again, we'll talk about somebody who is, they're semi-consistent working out and they're looking at, maybe adding a little bit of muscle and, or, maintenance. Mm-hmm. How many times should they be training? For example, you mentioned, pull, a press, a squat. How many times should they be training legs, for example, each week?
So let's take someone, because there are the newbie gains. So whoever's first starting, you're in so much luck. Because you're going to look at me, it's like hero, anyone, when I work with someone and they're new, I know that it's going to seem like I'm the smartest person on the planet for about 4 months. And then you start to level off some, but you will have those newbie gains. It's the person who's always been working out that now goes, all right, I got to get out of this rut. The things that you'll want to look at there, number one, I always like to know where I'm starting. So I think that's a good time to go, okay, what can I do in a push-up? How many push-ups could I do? How many pull-ups can I do? Right? It may be that you can't do one pull-up to start. You need a little assist, doesn't matter. Then go into a flexed arm hang. How many of those can you do? How many squats can you do? How much weight can you use? So you kind of get a baseline of where you're at. And then I like to rotate things in. So I'll do one thing for about 8 weeks where I'm really focused, but within that, I might vary up the reps and sets a little bit. So let's say that I'm focusing really on squats. Well, one day that week, I might just do squat jumps, and I might do squat jumps onto, a 12 or 16 inch platform. And I'm not jumping back down, by the way, I'm focusing just on the jump up. If I'm doing push-ups, then I might do push-ups with a little pop at the end, right? Not the whole Jack Palance clap, but a little pop. And then pull-ups, if I can only do, right now I'm at 4 sets of 6. So then I might just go and do 1 or 2 extras and then 1 or 2 more extras. You just start pushing it a little bit more to see where you can get. Because once you've got that foundation down, the way you're going to improve is you're going to either add exercises, add sets, add reps, add speed, add weight. So something's gotta go harder. And then I think one day a week it's fun, and this naturally happens for me because I travel, is I'll throw in more speed and power work that's not as heavy. Mm-hmm. So I might do kettlebell swings or a medicine ball throw up in the air, wood chops, burpees, jumping jacks, all that kind of stuff. And I can pretty much, I could take someone into the gym in 30 minutes and wipe the floor with them doing that kind of stuff. It's hard because especially if you do more of a 4 minutes of really all out and walk around for 3, and you're not going to do that for long.
So basically we're looking at one day of focus training for certain body parts and then another day where you're training your body parts, but training them differently.
Well, what I would say is this. It's really going to depend on what your goals are. That's why you've got to know when you're coming in, go, all right, what is my most important thing? Is it simply building muscle? And if so, we want to have great quality muscle. Is it building muscle? Is it getting more strength? Some people don't want to really build muscle, but they'd like to have more strength. And you can actually do that without getting as much muscle, because muscle is going to be actually the longer sets with more volume. Or maybe they want to build power. I think whichever one you want to focus on, you still need all of them. So let's say that I think ideally, especially for women, if we can train each body part 3 times a week, it's going to be better. Mm-hmm. Within that, you got to listen to your body. Because if you go and do what I did, where I just maxed out my quads, then take a little break, go through it, do it light. I always think we're better off doing things light than not doing anything. Like I'm not into just rest, do something else, do some restorative yoga, do some walking. But let's say that you want to build muscle and you like some power and strength. I would say 3 times a week, you want to hit those 3 body parts. So there's upper body pushing. Those would be things like push-ups, overhead presses, dips. I like compound multi-joint exercises. When we can do things where you have to incorporate balance, awesome, because in life we're not bolted to the floor. So even though hypertrophy gains can be the same using a machine or using free weights, it's not going to be the same for your nervous system and balance and all of that. So whenever we can move to cables or free weights or body weight, if it's enough, I think you should do it that way. So that might be a push-up, it might be dumbbell presses. That's the same type of thing, working your chest, working your back, your front of your shoulders, your triceps. Then it might be an overhead press. I love those because they actually load the spine. So when we look at something like bone density is a lagging indicator of crappy muscle. Just like, blood sugar instability is a lagging indicator of poor insulin sensitivity, right? So if you are focusing on having great muscles, likely you'll never have a bone density issue. And if you do have a bone density issue, pushing weights over your head is fantastic because it loads your spine and loads your hips. Just like a walking vest is great for bone density too. So I love overhead presses. Plus, it's super functional. We have to put stuff places overhead. Yeah. So, and you could do an overhead press standing on a Bosu ball as you, as you get better, as you progress. And dumbbell presses, not not a barbell. So any of these things I'm doing dumbbell presses, not a barbell, because I want to have to balance and stabilize, use my core to be able to do that. I love dips. I always caveat if someone's got a shoulder problem, but I love dips because in life we're pushing ourselves out of things. So dips are very functional. And then for upper body pulling, that would be things like a pull-up, which a lat pull-down is a good mimic for that. A bent over row is one of my most favorite because in life we pick stuff up off the floor. And upright rows. And then and that's lats and biceps and back of the shoulders and shoulder girdle. And then hip and thigh hinging are things like squats and step ups. I love step ups because we got to get up the stairs, right? Yeah. With stuff. You look at it and go, I'm carrying stuff up the stairs. That's a step up. I like lunges and side lunges because there's agility to that. You have to catch yourself. And I like deadlifts. And I've been playing around a lot with what's called a one-legged Romanian deadlift. Like when I first started those, I go, I am so bad at this. This is unbelievable. And I will tell you, going to the gym, because I have a gym at home too, but I purposely made myself do it at the gym where it's embarrassing because here I am, a fitness Hall of Famer. They don't know it, but they're probably looking at me going, what is with that lame girl over at the corner falling over doing that one-legged Romanian deadlift? But you got to push yourself past to the things that are hard. Yeah. You do hard things at the gym. You can do hard things in life. So I would say you pick at least 2 of those exercises. I think 3 is better for each area. Now, you want to do each area 3 times a week, but it doesn't mean you have to do all of them together. I love I don't like the name of the exercise snacks, but I love the exercise snacks concept where you can do your workouts all day long. I think in a perfect world, we'd get up in the morning, have whatever our morning routine is. Mine's coffee, but coffee meditation. Mine's the opposite, meditation, coffee. And then whatever else you're going to do, but get in a little HIIT or movement. And then at some point throughout the day, you do your push circuit. Then maybe you do your pull circuit. Then the next day you do your hips and thigh circuit. It doesn't matter. As long as you're getting it in 3 days a week with a good warm up overall, then a warm up set. So if I'm going to do squats, maybe holding a 50-pound dumbbell, I'd do squats holding like a 20-pounder to start. And then I'd go do 3 hard sets with the sets being whatever the weight is I'm holding. By the time I get to the end, I feel like if I could do maybe 1, 2 left, take about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, do it again. So for building, that would be best. For power, just add some speed, especially you want the speed on the concentric. So the concentric is on the push-up, that's pushing away from the ground. On the pull-up, that's pulling yourself up. On the squat, that's standing up. It's on the shortening phase of the muscle. So on the hard part of it. So, and the other part of it is 1 day a week. And you can either do this 1 day a week or you could do 1 week a month, whatever you want to do it. But I think I'm going to give you, because I like specifics, 1 day a week. Let's say you said, this is going to be my hard fast day where I'm going to do 3 to 4 sets, 6 repetitions, heavy as I can go, fast as I can go. And and what's great is you'll get out of the gym faster too, right? You might need a little longer break in between sets, but if you could do 10 pounds at 10, you're probably going to be doing more like 15 pounds dumbbells, right? So did that all make sense?
Of course, yes. Okay. And I love the little extra things that you added in, like the overhead press. And, these are the things people don't think about. A friend of mine, his son is working to get fit right now, getting himself into shape. And he's a college athlete, former college athlete. And, he's like trying to get his core together, get the 6-pack. And he saw a photo of me online. So he's been asking me a lot of questions. He didn't know what I did, I'm assuming. And I'm just like, bro, because he's like, today I did the hanging leg raises. I did the, stability ball crunch. I did all this stuff. I'm like, bro, you need to focus on deadlifts, overhead presses. If you think about that overhead press, it's like a standing plank, you know, and and you're getting the benefit of working these major muscle groups too, this complex muscle groups while your abs have to kick on to keep you stable. And I love farmer carries, by the way. I love that. And what I've implemented recently is doing uneven weights, right? So on one hand, I might have, a 56-pound primal bell. On the other hand, it's like a 36-pound one. And just giving my brain and nervous system the ability to and I don't do that as like the primary set, but just a little sprinkle in of an input, because also life doesn't always hand you, well, most often doesn't hand you even forces, right? So just in a controlled environment, being able to do these things. And again, I just feel more adaptable. I feel more capable and ready than I've ever been, just by, and the thing is just a change in thinking as we get older, because I know we've both went through the phase of like, we do our kind of rote things and, push, pull, all the things, but just being able to add these things in, like your change of pace, changing speed on a certain day is just brilliant. I love
and throwing things around. It is a mindset thing though. It was so interesting because I didn't check in with this. I had all these goals for 50 and then I was in the 50s. And I just went on autopilot and I didn't think about it. And I let the talk out there start to get in, even though I wasn't paying attention to it. If you don't tightly manage your environment, you know what happens. And so I kept kind of telling myself, oh, I'm fine because I go to the gym, and I wasn't pushing myself. And I was like, but this is good for my age, that kind of garbage, right? I don't want to be good for my age. I don't want, I had some guy come up to me and goes, wow, that's really good for a girl. I'm like, dude, I just lifted more than you. Like, I'm twice your age. I lifted more than you. This isn't good for a girl. This was just good, right? Like, let's get real here. But it's really that mindset of like, what will it take to be in the best shape of your life? Like, I am literally in the better shape of my life now than I was in my 20s. And I've always worked out. And so I know that it's possible for anybody. I mean, when I was in grad school, we had these 80s and 90-year-old master athletes that could have kicked my butt. I mean, they were amazing. And I'd see them down at Gold's Gym, people in their 70s that were incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm choosing to focus on. Like, you can focus on all of that negativity out there about what's happening and what happens at the age of 40 and how we're losing all that. You can say, but that's because you're not doing anything. And what is really clear is that if you are doing the things, but you have to be really clear on the things, because we don't have the margin of error that we had in our 20s, that if you're training specifically for the things we will lose if we're not training for them, like balance, like flexibility, like stability, like agility, like power, like strength, we can train for all of those things. And then we don't have to lose any of them. But we better make sure our diet's dialed in too, right?
So we're covering the 5 things you're doing to be fit in your 60s that most people aren't doing. We covered jumping/agility. We covered walking with a weighted implement. We covered lifting heavy weights. What's the next one?
So the next one has to, of course, be diet. And the important thing here is, you can get away with a lot in your teens and 20s because you've got hormones on board that allow your body to make muscle easily. Once you hit like 40 plus, we've got a couple things we've got to consider. Number one is this idea of anabolic resistance, which when you really look at anabolic resistance, it doesn't have to happen. It's not this magic thing that happens in our 30s and 40s. Yes, we're not making muscle from the hormonal inputs we had in our 20s. Yes, we're relying on protein to be the trigger, but we don't have to have that resistance to it if we are exercising and eating correctly. So we can push past that, which is super cool. So in exercise, it's amazing the things exercise can do. So exercise can help tremendously here. So can things like senolytics. But anabolic resistance is our resistance to being able to use protein to trigger muscle protein synthesis. And this idea is that we need more as we age, not less. I think that we need to eat protein for a couple different reasons. And the reason I have people eat protein first is I just heard too many times that someone didn't get their protein in because they were full. And literally, I would go out. I recently did a talk in Nashville it was in New Orleans, and a bunch of us went out to eat afterwards. And one of the women was in her early 60s. She was like the poster child for everything I talk about. She was losing muscle mass. She was a little soft and fluffy. She was normal weight, but what you would call a skinny fat, right? Not strong, didn't work out, walked a little bit. That was the extent of it. Probably maybe a little Pilates, but walking, right? I tell them all about eating protein, how much you need, basically 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of target body weight, that you should eat it first to make sure you get it in, that you need enough protein to trigger that. It's this Dr. Donald Lehman's work to trigger leucine, to trigger muscle protein synthesis. You need those essential amino acids to rebuild. If you're trying to lose body fat, you actually need more of it. If you're trying to build muscle, you'll need more. And we sit down at dinner and I watch her have bread, appetizer, which was more carbs, salad, which was basically a sundae. You know, it was like the glazed nuts, the sweet dressing. And then she ordered eggplant. So I'm watching this go down, right? And had a glass of wine. Now I ordered this big steak and I'm hacking off a piece of my steak, put it on her plate. And she says, I'm full. And I said, well, skip out on that eggplant over there, which by the way, has more calories than the lean meat that I just gave you. This eggplant, which is a sponge, as
without
we know.
the thermogenic benefit.
Yeah, no thermogenic effect. I mean, it's just a carb and fat bomb. You just got eggplant soaks up oil. So you just got this big breaded, cheesy, eggy, planty thing. And who likes eggplant? Anyway.
Well, you know, the emoji means many things, though.
Okay, so we're just going to leave that alone. So she goes, you're protein shaming me. I said, I absolutely am. And she is now eating protein first because she got it. I go, see, you just did it. You filled yourself up. So I teach people to first identify how much protein they need. And what I really like to do is before we do anything else, we identify how much protein you need. And you're getting that in at least 30 to 40 grams of protein at each meal. I think if you're going plant, you need to hit 40. I like to actually hack it a little bit with giving people essential amino acids too, especially in the morning, but maybe the morning and evening to make sure they're getting what they need. Then I don't have to worry about it. Especially if someone's more plant-based, I know we got what we needed. And for a week, I just have someone track that. That's all they do. They have to use a food app and they're tracking everything, but they're just focusing on the protein. Don't change anything else. Just focus on the protein. Because I know a couple things are going to happen. Number one, they'll actually get full. And not just that they're full satiated, they're also full satisfied. So it's a very different type of thing than feeling that bloated full. They're just full. Number two, they have, like you talked about, the thermic effect of food. So now they've got a bigger caloric expenditure. And we know what food is somewhere in the 15 to 30% of your overall calories a day are going to be thermic effect of food. So protein is really the only one that drives that. And so you're going to get a better thermic effect of your food. It's going to help you detox. It's going to help you make better food choices. And I know you got it in because you ate it first. And if that's all you did, likely you're going to end up eating less. You'll have a better thermic effect. You'll probably drop a little bit of weight just doing that, but the weight you'll drop won't be muscle. And that's the other important thing. That you got to make sure that you're holding on to muscle and losing fat, which is why I don't think anyone in my perfect world, you would never restrict calories without exercise, optimal protein, and body composition tracking.
That's the formula.
Right? Because then you'd actually know what's going on.
Yeah. And there's this old sentiment that says you can't manage what you aren't measuring. Right. And, you know, so again, the big hallmark here, and this is number 4 on the list, is protein first.
Eat protein first.
And I've seen you do this in action in the real world. You know, we went out to eat a couple months back and it was Cynthia was there as well. Cynthia Garcia, her husband, Zach, my wife was there, and it's you and Tim. And I saw it, you know, everybody's getting like a little salad to start off. You was just bring my meat out. And you went right into that steak. And, you know, you dabbled, you had a little bit of some other stuff, but you did in practicality. Like I saw you do that. Now, of course, I'm just like, this is interesting, but
she actually does what she says she's going to do.
You're a real one.
I really do
out here.
I do it. I pretty much I will always start with protein. Then I add in some vegetables. And then I'll have if I want something else, I have a little berries. And if I want to go wild, I have a little bit of sugar-free dark chocolate chips with them.
By the way, I want to circle back a little bit because you said something earlier that I don't want to gloss over, which is just impressive AF to me, which was the 4 sets of 6 pull-ups. All right. When you're just like, somebody's like, oh, that's for a girl. That's great. No. For a human being, for you to do what you're doing is just like unbelievable, but believable. Like you're actually doing this stuff. at such a high level, and it's so cool to see. And I love this, like you put this, and I want everybody to really listen to this. You put in your mind to challenge yourself, like I was coasting in my 50s. I had to put in my mind to take things to another level, to challenge myself. And how often do we find ourselves coasting, right? Doing the bare minimum. And we can do that because for a lot of us, our bare minimum is still going to put us in the top 5% healthy people, in the United States. But is it, like, is that exclusive of a club? Like, is that really exceptional? And to do that, we've got to put something psychologically for ourselves to challenge us.
Yes.
And so, some people are more internally self-motivated and you can just like figure out a thing, maybe it's a particular lifting goal, but for some people it's like signing up for something, right? So, maybe an arm wrestling competition, right?
I got one coming up. Got another one with Mike Picallo. It's coming up.
You said that too. I thought about the arm wrestling competition, but now they got the slap competition. JJ.
What's that?
Have you not seen this stuff? They get right across, just basically looks like an arm wrestling table, but they slap the shit out of each other.
I don't want to do that.
All right. I don't want you to either. Okay. All right. This is, Daniel Amen would be mortified. Horrified. I'm sure he's seen it before, but it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Wow. But you were so spot on about the challenges. It started first with, we did DEXAs. Then I was like, all right. So I have a specific number I want to be on the DEXA. And I gave Tim, my husband, a goal too. But then I went, what has to happen in order to get there? What has to happen in terms of muscle? And then I started going down the rabbit hole. Okay, now what do I want to do with HIIT and lactate training? Okay, now what do I want to be able to do with balance? Like I did a jumping crow the other day in yoga. And I used to go to yoga and they would get down and do crow. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like I'm going to drink some water during this time. You know how I love yoga because you can do your practice. And I always see one girl in the class and she just lies there the whole time. That's her practice, right? It's like, wow. But like I look now and go, what are the things that I told myself before I couldn't do either because, you've got a bad knee or I'm going for all of them. Like all of them. And it's kind of fun. Those are the things that get you excited. And I say pick one at a time. Like right now, one of the things I'm really focused on is how much I had to get my activity level up to a specific point each day where I'm always looking at how do you in your life continue to raise your floor? And I think as we age, we start to let the floor sink when we really need to raise the floor, right? So if it used to be that you were like, oh, okay, this is, I'm happy with my weight being 140. And I would say if you haven't done body composition, your weight at 30 years old and your weight at 50 or 60 are not the same weight, you need to know, right? But whatever it is, set a new goal for yourself. And then give yourself this, challenge to get there. And if you're not self-motivated, either hire someone and pay them more than you can afford, whether that's $5 or $5,000 to help you get there, or get a friend to do it with you.
I love that. This is what you just said right there is one of the secrets that shouldn't be a secret, which is you don't have to do this alone, and utilizing our community, utilizing our friendships, our relationships, even just, the challenges that we go through, we don't have to stress by ourselves, and also there's something so connective about doing physical activities with other people, like you really, you learn a lot about people, in these certain contexts. And actually my oldest son, what we've been doing when we've been, meeting up, because now he's moved out the house, just going to shoot around, play basketball, just being, it creates a different format and we open up more in a different way.
I back when I was a trainer, I always thought, gosh, I should go get my therapy license because when you're working out with someone, everything comes out. It just, I don't know what it unlocks, but you start to feel comfortable talking about whatever is out there. But I know for Tim and I, we make a point of going, especially in the evenings, we either sauna at night or we go for a walk. And that's where we will just, deconstruct the day out for a weighted wrecking walk.
All right. So we've already covered 4 of these 5 things that you're doing to be fit in your 60s and most people simply aren't doing. Number 1, jumping, agility. Number 2, walking with a weighted implement. Number 3, lifting heavy weights. Number 4, eating protein first And this is where all the real science is pointing. Number 5, and you said this to me before we got going today, is getting off your ace, just moving more. Talk about that.
I've alluded to it already. And these trackers are so great. Remember when we used to have to use pedometers? Do you remember the pedometer? Oh my gosh, you don't really, do you? You do?
I mean, it wasn't part of my cultural lingo.
I'm a little older than you. So back in the day when we had Sony Walkmans, we also had pedometers to track steps. And it was where that original 10,000 steps came from, where there was really no validity to it. However, now there's enough research on this. And I think where I started to really look at this was the research started coming out going, if you're working out 30 minutes a day, which is what the CDC says, 30 minutes, I think it's 30 minutes, 5 days a week, right? And now they've put in 2 days of weight training. I go, no one knows what that means. We have to spell this stuff out. But let's say you're doing 30 minutes, 5 days a week, and it's probably easy walking. And then maybe you're doing those resistance training sessions, but you're sitting the rest of the time. You basically are Xing it all out, that you would be better off just making sure you're moving more all throughout the day. Now, when you look at your metabolism, you've got your basal metabolic rate. We know that the biggest way you can impact that basal metabolic rate is to put more muscle on, because then you burn more calories at rest. So that's lift heavy things, eat protein first, right? Then you have the thermic effect of food, eat protein first. Then you have exercise. And to me, the real reason to do exercise is to get that muscle mass on, right? And also within that exercise is to add in some high intensity interval training to improve your VO2 max. But the big piece of it that can really impact your metabolism, how many calories you're going to be able to use during the day, because we want good flux. We don't want to eat less and exercise less. We want to exercise more and be able to eat reasonable amount to get the nutrients we need, is to move more. And so just like with food, I say start eating your protein and track. I think the best thing that you can do is get an Oura Ring or a Whoop, something that can track your steps, and just pay attention for a week and see how many steps you're actually getting in. I have been trying to find what the average is. So far, what I found, and you were talking earlier, like I think it's less than that, was 3,500 to 4,000 steps a day. And what I noticed in just tracking myself is I was averaging around 8,000 steps a day. Now, in the curve where they say you get the most benefits is somewhere in the 8 to 12,000, but that doesn't mean just do that. More is better, right? What I wouldn't want someone to do is take away from their exercise to get more steps in. But I think for me, in my hierarchy of needs, I would first start someone with, let's track how much you move. And let's make sure you're getting in 8,000 as your floor. Once we have 8,000 as your floor, let's raise it to 10. And then let's raise it to 12. And if you're wondering how you do it, literally, now that I'm aware and I'm watching it on my app, and it's such a dopamine hit, let's be real. Like I totally watch this on my app and I know how much I want to have done earlier in the day. Like I don't want it to be 8 o'clock at night and now I need, 5,000 steps. I'm like, okay, we're heading out. And that's all I'll tell Tim, we got to go out. Like we've got to go out after dinner. But all you have to really do is once you're aware of it, you will take the stairs more, you'll park farther away, you'll stand before your sit. I have a walking desk and, the elevated desk with a walking pad. So you just start to look for every opportunity you can because it really all counts. And you can see how easy it is if you're not paying attention to be in that 3,500 to 4,000 range. I mean, you could have 1,000 to 2,000 calorie swing a day just because you're moving more. Right. And then the way I set my office up at home, I set my office upstairs and the kitchen downstairs. And I was going to put the coffee machine and drinks and everything upstairs too. And then I thought, nope, not doing that. I'm going to be up and down and up and down and up and down all day long. Mm-hmm. So that I can't, I don't get to bring 3 drinks at once. Nope. Yeah. One. Want another one? Go back downstairs.
It's just little things like that, just setting up your environment in a certain way. This reminds me, and man, I love this so much. This is so good. Of gaming with my youngest son, right? So we play this NBA 2K game, and you know, but also he does the same thing that I do, because we could just bring all our stuff downstairs. I could bring my little element, you know, my waters, you know, maybe a snack, and just sit it all on the table. But, you know, I'll literally go upstairs and drink water. We'll take a break, pause, and go upstairs and get water, and then come back down, right? So, because then I think about how I grew up, which is we bring all the stuff to the environment because we're not leaving this
Well,
space.
you wonder what happened. Like, I think back to when I grew up, when we had literally like black and white TVs, and there was this remote, non-existent, and you actually had to get up. Just the difference between having to get up to change a channel.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference, right? I mean, everything now is designed so we don't have to move.
Yep.
I mean, we won't even have to push the gas pedal on the car anymore.
Yeah.
So it's frightening. I mean, and I wouldn't have really realized it, but I'm working with someone right now who is morbidly obese, helping them and they were an athlete. So we are now in their athlete mind. He got his athlete picture out from way back when. I'm like, we're there. You know, I'm just like, let's future pace you right now, right? But 2,500 steps a day was what he was doing. And so we had to go to 3, and then 35, and then 4. We're at 5 now. That we've been creeping, and now we added in exercise breaks. I call them doses because the idea of an exercise snack. He was like, we get to eat and work out. I go, no, we don't. But
trigger word,
right? So his exercise doses are literally chair squats, but they're not chair squats down to the chair. They're chair squats to the arm because it's too low right now. They are push-ups against a table, like a high counter. They're like 5-pound overhead presses. They are little things, and everything counts and makes a difference because we are overloading. We're doing more than what he's used to, and just continuing to build and build and build on that.
Yeah. This is so good. You're so good. I love talking with you.
You're so good. You're the best interviewer.
Stop
I'm
it.
learning from you.
Stop it. Keep going.
It is being, I hope people understand this. Being a great interviewer is a massive skill. There are very few out there.
I'll receive that. Thank you, JJ. Well, can you let everybody know where they can follow you, get more information, get your books, all that good stuff?
So I've been doing a bunch on YouTube now because I'm trying to put out more actual exercise videos. Like, here's how you can do, a 4x4 HIIT training at home with nothing. And that's the big important thing too. There's so much of the stuff you can do at home with minimal equipment. So if you're one of those people that feels like you have to get in shape to go to the gym, it's kind of like I have to get a job to get a job, you can do all of this stuff at home. Where I like everybody to start is with the protein. So I have the Eat Protein First Challenge that's free, and that's at jjvirgin.com/protein first. Easy peasy. And then everything's on my website. But again, the YouTube channels where I'm really focusing now on giving as much useful information, including I have a how to start a resistance training program and a resistance training cheat sheet of things you can do at home to get started.
They're really like these little mini master classes on subjects that you do, and they're so helpful. Again, you're the best. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us.
Thank you.
Until we do this again.
Yes.
The one and only JJ Virgin, everybody.
Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here.
Mindfulness, as I study it, has nothing to do with meditation. Meditation is fine. This is just different. It's the simple process of noticing. And when you're noticing, the neurons are firing. And 45 years of research shows that it's literally and figuratively enlivening.